Maybe you never planned to carry so much. Maybe it started small. One responsibility, one expectation, one moment where you said, I'll handle it. And then another weight was added, and another, and another, until carrying became normal. Maybe no one noticed how heavy it was becoming. Not because it wasn't heavy, but because you learned how to carry it quietly. Listen, you didn't wake up one day overwhelmed. It happened slowly. You became the reliable one, the strong one, the one others leaned on, the one who figured things out when no one else did. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking whether you were meant to carry all of this alone. Listen, you told yourself, it's just for now. Once this season passes, I'll rest. Other people need me. So you kept going. You carried responsibilities that were never fully yours. You carried emotions that weren't yours to resolve. You carried expectations. No one ever asked if you could sustain, and you didn't complain. You adapted. Listen, adaptation can look like strength, but over time, adaptation becomes exhaustion. You didn't break. You didn't collapse. You simply grew tired in ways that were hard to explain. Psalm 38:4 says, my guilt has overwhelmed me like a burden too heavy to bear. God understands the language of weight. He knows what it feels like when something becomes too much. Listen, you learned how to function while feeling emotionally drained, how to stay present while your mind felt crowded, how to keep showing up even when rest stopped restoring you. And from the outside, you looked capable, but inside, something felt strained. Listen, you weren't weak for feeling this way. You were human. Some of what you carried came from love. Some came from responsibility. Some came from fear of letting others down. Some came from believing that if you didn't hold it together, everything would fall apart. So you held on tighter. Listen, Psalm 55:22 says, cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. Not because you failed, but because you were never meant to carry everything alone. God never designed you to be the foundation for everyone else. Listen, there were moments you felt stretched thin, but told yourself to endure. Moments when your heart felt heavy, but you didn't feel safe enough to set anything down. Moments when you wondered why life felt so heavy, even though you were doing everything you were supposed to do, and the weight stayed. Listen. God saw the moment when responsibility became overload, when strength turned into strain, when endurance began draining more than it was building. Psalm 34:19 says, "The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all." Deliverance does not always mean removing everything at once. Sometimes it begins by helping you recognize what was never yours to carry. Listen. You may be realizing now that some of the weight you carried was never assigned to you by God. It was assumed, absorbed, inherited, taken on out of love or fear. And God is gentle when He reveals this. Listen. Jesus once said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 7:28. Not after you prove your strength. Not after you finish carrying everything, but while you are still tired. Listen. Rest is not permission to quit life. It is permission to stop carrying what is not yours. Psalm 68:19 says, "Praise be to the Lord, who daily bears our burdens." God carries what you cannot. He always has. Listen. You don't have to set everything down all at once. Sometimes healing begins by loosening your grip, by naming the weight, by acknowledging the strain, by admitting that something became too heavy along the way. Listen. God is not disappointed in you for feeling tired. He's compassionate. Psalm 147:3 says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." Binding is careful. Healing is patient. God does not rip burdens away. He teaches you how to release them safely. Listen. You carried more than you should have. Not because you were wrong, but because you cared. And now, God is inviting you to carry differently. Not alone. Not in silence. Not in constant strain. Listen. Some strength looks like endurance, but another kind of strength looks like surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It is trust. Listen. You're allowed to rest without guilt. You are allowed to say, "This is too much." You are allowed to let God carry what you were never meant to hold alone. Listen. This season is not about adding more weight. It is about learning what can finally be set down. If this message spoke to your heart, like, share, and subscribe so it can reach someone who has been carrying too much for too long. And if you feel led, comment. I'm learning to let go. May His peace find you today.